r/nosleep. Posted by you/Grego525. I live in a lighthouse and I shouldn't have opened the door that night. The storm was immense and the waves crashing against the shoreline seemed to shake the ground beneath me. The wind was so powerful I thought it would tear the lighthouse down. The light of the lighthouse disappeared into the night. The thunders drowned out the crash of waves and sounded like 1,000 drums beating in a fierce battle. Rain poured down like a waterfall, and lightning bolts streaked across the sky, lighting up the ocean for a brief moment just before the thunder fell like a hammer on the shore. Fear ran through my veins as I desperately hoped that the lighthouse would shield me from the raging storm. I was considering leaving the top floor and going down to the lowest one, just in case, but I was praying that the storm would die down soon. People usually wonder why I chose to live in a lighthouse. The truth is, I wanted to be alone, surrounded by peace and quiet. It didn't take me long to feel at home here, and now I embrace every moment of it. Here, on one of the Shetland Islands, I am far away from the everyday hustle and bustle of town, but that doesn't bother me, being so near the sea more than makes up for it. Every morning I go down the winding stairs to the shoreline, cup of coffee in hand, to take in the view and be grateful for my current situation. Living here can feel like I'm cut off from the rest of the world, but at least I have access to the internet that way. I'm still able to keep in touch with my loved ones. That night, the storm did not want to dissipate and the building began to tremble, so I decided to go to the ground floor out of fear that it might collapse. As I descended and reached the bottom, I let out a sigh of relief. That's when I heard the knock on the door. Seriously? I asked, wondering if it was a figment of my imagination. Who could possibly be knocking on my door during the storm of the century on a remote island? I heard the knock again, and this time it seemed more urgent. My heart raced as I opened the door, and I saw a man standing outside, water streaming down his face. His eyes were heavy with exhaustion, his clothes drenched and clinging to his body, his breath coming in weak gasps, and his face was pale and fatigued. Can I help you?" I asked awkwardly. Without saying anything, the man stepped inside and stopped. "Has he been here?" he asked. I furrowed my brow, unsure of what he meant. "Who? Nobody has been here before me?" he asked. His gaze shifted to the dust-covered sofa, his hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. "You are the first person I've seen here in 2 months," I answered. "Are you sure he isn't here?" he asked in disbelief, and then marched past me up the spiral staircase without waiting for a reply. His eyes darted around wildly, searching for something with great intensity. I raced up the stairs after him, yelling, "Hey man, stop. Who do you think you are?" My voice echoed in the darkness. When I reached the top of the lighthouse, I saw him standing in the middle of the room, surveying the area. His shoulders drooped in relief when he realized that it was just us. "Now tell me, what's going on?" I said, studying his face for signs of distress. He looked like he had been through a storm, and I felt a pang of empathy. He didn't answer, so I gave him a minute to collect his thoughts. We went back to the ground floor. I bustled around my mini kitchen, filling the kettle with water and setting it on the stove. I shuffled through cabinets until I found my favorite mug, and spooned out 2 teaspoons of loose leaf tea leaves. When the water had boiled, I poured it into the mug, stirred it and placed it in his hands. He took a grateful sip and let out a sigh. "Where is your ship?" I questioned, peering out of the window. Blackness was all that greeted me, and the downpour was so intense it seemed like the glass might break from the force of the rain. "I have no ship," the stranger said. That's when I got a good look at him. His dark hair and blue eyes caught my attention. He was likely in his middle years, though I couldn't tell exactly how old he was. His eyes held something unspoken, as if he had some sort of secret while he sipped his tea. "How did you arrive here without a ship then?" I inquired, certain that asking if he swam was an absurd suggestion. The stranger's eyes had a distant, faraway look, as if he was looking back in time. "I've been here for as long as I can remember," he said, his voice full of wistful nostalgia. "Are you serious? This lighthouse and the storage shed outside are the only infrastructure on this island. I can make out the other side of the island from the top of the tower, and there's no way anyone can live here." The island was relatively small indeed, like 25 football fields. There were some small forests and plantations, and it wasn't possible to live there. The company that ran the island lighthouse said nothing about anyone living there. "Really man, what are you doing here?" I pressed on. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other and glanced around the room, eyebrows pinched together in confusion. "Look, you need to do something for me. If you don't follow my instructions, it will have terrible consequences," he said, and he was frightened. "Okay, what is it?" I decided to play along. "I am leaving soon. If I come back before midnight, whatever I say, do not open the door." Well, that was a very strange request. I looked at my watch. It was 10 o'clock. "So you don't want me to let you in if you return before midnight?" I asked. The man's voice rose in intensity when he said, "Yes, exactly." He stood up and strode towards me, his face a mask of seriousness. He crouched down until his eyes were level with mine, and he gazed deep into my eyes with an intensity that made me feel uneasy. "You need to remember, it does not matter what I say, you cannot let me in." His voice boomed like thunder and I could hardly distinguish it from the rumbles of the storm outside. "Listen to me very carefully, son," he went on. "Even if I am very convincing to let me in, you need to keep the door closed, you understand?" He said and gripped my face in his hands. Apparently, the pressure was too much because I quickly removed his hands. He soon noticed my resistance. "But where are you leaving?" I asked. "That does not matter. Wait until midnight, do not open the door earlier. You understand?" he said. The man's voice was deep and raspy as if every word came out of his mouth with a heavy dose of gravel. His words were clipped and laced with a dialect that seemed to be older than time. He drank the last of his tea and I ushered him to the door. "My name is Balder, by the way," he noted on the way down. I opened it for him and he vanished into the night. After I closed the door, a loud thunderclap startled me, so I scurried back to my sofa and flung myself onto it. The storm had left me exhausted from being alone, and this one was more powerful than any other I'd seen. I consulted the calendar next to the wall, hoping that the supply ship would arrive tomorrow. They usually came to the island every 2 weeks. I made up my mind to tell them about the strange encounter, but doubt crept into my mind. What if he was a criminal running away from danger? Or worse, a murderous lunatic? Come to think of that, I questioned my own decision to let the mysterious person in. I was still confused as to how he had managed to reach such a tiny island. I needed something to take the edge off, so I went to the fridge and opened it. I grabbed a bottle of Jim Beam and poured a generous amount into a glass. I sank into the cushions of the sofa and brought the glass to my lips. The sweet aroma of the whiskey filled my nostrils as I sipped, feeling the warmth of it spread throughout my body. The buzz was gentle, one sip was enough to make me feel relaxed, and soon I drifted off into a peaceful slumber. The knock on the door jolted me awake and I glanced over at the clock on the wall, realizing it was already 11:05 p.m. I barely had any rest that night, my heart pounding as I walked to the door. There was another knock. I stood before the door, and then heard a familiar voice pleading for help. "Who is that?" I asked. "I am wounded. Please let me in," he said. "I can't do that. Look, I know that you are feeling scared of letting a stranger inside in the middle of the night, but I wouldn't ask you to do that if I wasn't seriously injured." I slowly creaked the door open, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't believe it. There he was, wearing the same gray raincoat and brown trousers he had been wearing earlier. His face was pale and drawn, his eyes wide and wild. But it was the red stain that caught my eye, a deep, dripping gash across his stomach. He stumbled forward, barely able to keep his balance. Also, there was a bag next to him. He shouldn't have taken such a risk by going out alone. I was worried that he would get hurt, and I was correct. How could he have thought this was a good idea? It was clear that he was on the brink of death and I had to open the door for him, no hesitations. I gently picked him and the bag up and carried him inside, laying him down on the couch tenderly. He had already lost so much blood, I feared he would not make it through the night. I grabbed a stack of towels from the kitchen and placed them around him to mop up the blood before wrapping them tightly around his midsection in an effort to slow down the bleeding. I made sure he was comfortable before racing back into the kitchen and checking my medical cabinet for antibiotics and painkillers. Fortunately, I had to be a trained medical professional when I applied for this job, so I could quickly identify Balder's condition as septicemia caused by his injury. I proceeded to administer first aid followed by antibiotics. Within hours his breathing should normalize and color should start returning to his cheeks. "So what happened?" I asked. "I just did something that I shouldn't have. You can call me Balder," he said while I was doing my job. "I know," I said, without looking up. "How do you know?" he asked, his eyes widening in surprise. "Because you have just left an hour ago," I said, gesturing emphatically. "Did I?" he asked, his face scrunched up in thoughtful concentration. "Look. Tell me, what kind of sick joke are you playing with me? Huh?" I demanded, every muscle in my body tensing up with anger. He reached out and gripped my shoulders lightly, surprising me with his strength despite his injury. "What did he look like?" he demanded. "Are you crazy, man? It was you," I said. "No, It wasn't. Listen to me carefully. That man is very dangerous and somehow, he's impersonating me. What did he say to you? I shrugged my shoulders in response. Just that I shouldn't let you in. Oh no, he covered his face with his hands as if he had received devastating news. Are you finally going to tell me what's happening? I said. Look, that man is chasing me and he wants to kill me. He has been keeping me on this island since the beginning of time. I am a prisoner here and he keeps torturing me over and over. Tonight, he almost killed me and he will come back. He said. Excuse me for a second, sir. I can only think about two things. First, you are suffering from severe schizophrenia. Second, he is your twin brother. Third, you are just playing a sick game, but it is not funny at all. All scenarios give me the creeps, so please tell me, which one am I dealing with? Alright, fine. Think of him as my twin brother, he said and threw his hands up in frustration. That explains why you are alike. But it doesn't explain why both of you claim you are called Balder. What's the big deal about it? I have no time to explain it, kid. He is coming back soon and you need to act. It is 100% that he will kill you, you can bet on it, unless you kill him. Are you insane? I am not even sure you are not the same person. Think about it, kid, if I was the same person, would I really want you to kill me? I don't know. Would you? Let's not waste our time, kid. Take this, he said and walked up to his bag I had left at the door and he pulled out a crossbow from it. It only had one arrow and its spear was extremely sharp, its shine was captivating. This is the only thing that can kill him. You need to have it with you and when he comes back, you need to shoot him. One shoot will do it. I am not gonna kill anybody, I said, chuckling nervously. Well, you need to settle with the thought then. It's either him or you. I'm calling the Coast Guard, I said, making my way towards the telephone. But as I picked it up, it was silent due to the raging storm. He is extremely smart and he is already manipulating you. Can't you see? You cannot fall for him. Yeah, this is what you told me earlier. Good luck, kid. If you succeed, you save me and the world will be a better place. But if you fail or if you believe him, you are making a terrible mistake and everything that will happen afterwards will be on you. He said and started storming out of the lighthouse. Wait, sir, what about your injury? I asked, but he was already outside. This was crazy. I needed to call for support immediately because I was in danger. 1 or 2 lunatics were lurking around in the dark and I was alone. My only safety was the walls of this lighthouse. The only weapon I had were some kitchen knives. The gun in the drawer could hardly protect me as it was a red signal pistol. Oh, and 1 shot from the crossbow. I gazed at the weapon he had left me. It was ancient and had strange symbols carved into the side that I could not make out. Its luminous nature mesmerized me as was holding it in my palm. Then I looked at the clock. It was midnight. Is it possible that they are twins and one wants to kill the other one? I told myself. I just wanted this whole thing to go away. I wanted to sleep, to forget it all. I just could not get my head around the fact that I was in one of the most isolated places in the world and I was dealing with this. But even if I managed to call for help, who would believe me? Who would come here and save me? The fierce wind that howled outside sent chills up my spine. The ominous raindrops that pattered against the window and the rumbling thunders that echoed throughout the night made me fear what was yet to come. I could not believe these 2 idiots were chasing each other outside. Or one. I wished it was God playing with me and I wanted to tell him he had an amazing sense of humor. But before I could improve my train of thought, there was a knock on the door and I dropped my glass of tea onto the floor. My heart was racing as I approached the door. Please, go away. I am Balder. I told you I would come back after midnight. He shouted. I am not gonna let you in, whatever you say. What happened? Why did you change your mind? I did not respond. Did you let him in? I told you not to do that. You made a terrible, terrible mistake. He said in desperation, his voice was thunderous. Please, go away. You don't know what you have done. You have no idea. He screamed, and with a furious kick, the door flew open. I ran to the kitchen and took out some knives and started threatening him. Don't get any closer. Look, I don't want to hurt you. But you ruined everything. What the hell are you talking about? And what happened to your wound? He didn't respond. He looked away, far into the distance, sinking into his thoughts, and then a deep guffaw erupted from his mouth. He fooled you, didn't he? What? Yeah, I should have known that. He fooled you. But it's not your fault. I am not following you. Well, it seems, you have heart. That's why you let him in, despite my warning. Now the question is, which of us do you believe? I am not sure what to believe anymore. Please, let me alone, I begged and started crying. I can't, you need to decide. Which one of us are you going to kill? The man said and started walking towards me. I sprinted up the spiral stairs. You can't escape from destiny. The man said and came after me. I knew that I had to get away, so I kept on running until I reached the top of the tower. Finally, I got to the last floor, but there was no way out. He was blocking my only exit. In desperation, I grabbed an old sword from a nearby wall and held it up as a warning. The man stopped in his tracks and started laughing. Oh, so you want to fight me now? All right then. He said with a smirk. He lunged suddenly at me and I thrust the sword forward. But when I looked up, he was still standing there, still laughing. See, I can do the same thing that he did. Don't you take pity on me too? He exclaimed while a red stain began to form on his clothes. I couldn't believe my eyes as the sword passed straight through his body. He was bleeding but it didn't have any effect on him. What the hell are you? I murmured. Then I remembered the arrow, which I left downstairs. I was an idiot. How could I have left it there? I needed to figure out something. Get out of my way. I yelled, and gave him a shove. He stumbled down the stairs, tumbling like a cogwheel, while I dashed behind. He lay there at the bottom, dazed and hurt by the fall. I stepped over him and hastened to the table. When I picked it up, he was standing up slowly. Now you are talking. He said with a gleam in his eye, his mouth snapped shut. I swear, I will do it. I frowned at him. Look. I don't want to hurt you, son. You don't know a lot of things about this island and us. Let's talk. Put that thing down, he said and started coming towards me. He picked the crossbow from the table but it was too late. He grabbed it and tried to take it out of my hands. I tried to push him away but he wouldn't let go. He kept pulling on the crossbow and then, before I knew it, my finger slipped and the bolt released from its string. The sound of it puncturing his skin was like a hammer hitting an anvil. An unnerving dull thwack reverberated through the room for what felt like ages before fading into silence more chilling than anything that came before. I am so sorry, I didn't want to. I mumbled, covering my mouth with my hands. He stumbled back with wide eyes in shock as he looked down at where blood started to pour out of his chest right around where the tip of a bolt had struck him hard between two ribs. The shock on his face was unmistakable before his body fell to the floor with a thud that echoed through my heart as well as throughout the room itself. What did you do? You have no idea. He whispered but his words faded away. On his face, shock mixed with disbelief along with what seemed like confusion. His body sagged and he let out a long sigh, his eyes fixed on the ceiling, before succumbing to death. The windows rattled and a deep, reverberating rumble shook the entire building. It was a deafening roar that thundered across the sky, drowning out all other sounds. I had never heard anything so loud and powerful, and I felt my chest vibrate with the force of it. Tears began streaming down my face when reality hit hard. I accidentally killed him and I had no idea if I killed the good or the bad person. Would the other one come back? Or was it just the same person? I still had no idea. The only thing left for me to do was tell everything to the Coast Guard tomorrow morning, but first I had one last thing to take care of before then, turning my attention back onto him, lying there motionless in a pool of his own blood against the cold tile floor. He deserves some dignity after all that has transpired. So carefully and gently, I covered his body with a blanket and decided to go to sleep because I was so exhausted but I could not. I wasn't sure if I was the only one on the island. If they had spoken truthfully, then someone else was out there, lurking in the darkness. Was this person a victim or a killer? I pushed a chair against the door to lock it in place, just in case the other person would come back. I did not trust him either. Then I lay down in bed with a knife in my hand. Eventually, I fell into a troubled slumber. The next morning the sun's rays woke me. There was a bright, sunny day outside, as I saw it through the window. But shockingly, the body was missing. There wasn't a drop of blood to be found. I searched the lighthouse thoroughly, yet there was no trace of him. How could this be? I had killed him. Had someone taken his body? The door remained locked from the inside, so no one could have taken his body. I looked at my watch. The ship with the supplies was probably on the way. I was thinking if I should report this incident to the Coast Guard. What if it was just a very vivid dream? What if it was only made up by my own imagination? I decided it would be best to leave it be, as I had no desire to make a fuss or disrupt my livelihood. I emerged from the building, my eyes adjusting to the sudden brightness of the sun's rays. The ocean was a tranquil blue on the horizon. The vessel pulled up to the dock and the crew disembarked. They rushed about, delivering the cargo and stowing it away in the lighthouse's adjacent shed. The captain was an old man with a thick, grizzled beard, with weathered eyes, and his face had the wrinkles of a lifetime of experience. "Last night I thought the storm would never go away," I told him. "Storm? What storm, son?" the captain asked and glanced around, trying to make sense of his confusion. "I don't understand. The storm last night was so strong I thought the lighthouse wouldn't make it through," I replied, my voice quavering uncertainly. Nothing was reported in this area. The water was very silent and still in the moonlight. I and my friend were peacefully angling away, without a care in the world, he said. "That's impossible," I said and looked around. Indeed, there was no trace of any storm, everything was dry. "Captain, may I ask something?" "Fire away." "Have you heard of anyone living on this island?" "No one has ever left this island as far back as I can remember." "So you haven't heard of anybody ever set foot here?" "Nope. Unless you are talking about Balder and Hoder." "You said Balder?" My jaw dropped in shock. "Aye. They are characters from Norse mythology. The Shetland Islands were inhabited by the Vikings for some time, you see." I swallowed. Who are they?" "I haven't heard of them, but it sounds interesting," I lied. "They are divine twin brothers. Balder is the god of light, Hoder is the god of darkness. Balder is a beloved god who was always mocked by his jealous brother. Hoder believed that humanity fight, destroy, and kill, they are greedy and corrupt and never change. Balder on the other hand believed that humanity has a good nature inside. To prove their point, they agreed they would be willing to die at the hand of a human one day, so they would leave the decision to a human based on his morals. The one left alive would be set free and leave this island. You see, they cannot kill each other. They can torture each other, they can inflict wounds and cause physical pain to each other, but they will heal and cannot die. The local legend goes that their mother Frigg cast them away to this island and tasked Balder with taking care of his brother, so neither can they leave the island together. It's either one of them or none of them, you see. As long as they are on this island, the world is in balance and the duality of good and bad is maintained. But of course, there are many other versions of this legend, this is just one of the many. I covered my mouth in shock and I wanted to cry. "How do you distinguish them?" I asked in a trembling voice. The captain chuckled. "You can't. They look identical and there is no way of telling them apart. If the legend is true, one day they would both trick the human into killing the other one with a mistletoe arrow. That's the only weapon that can kill them, and only by a human." My mouth hung open and my eyes widened in disbelief. I felt my heart racing and my body rigid with shock. I was unable to move, unable to process what I had just heard. Did they hide anything on this island? I am not that good at local folklore, my boy, but I don't think so. Anyway, how are you dealing with this isolation, young man? I could hardly focus on his small talk after what I had just heard. I had a short conversation with him, and after his sailors finished loading the ship, my mind was racing. Did I really encounter two godlike beings? If so, which one of them did I kill? The good or the evil brother? If I killed the real Balden, I did make a terrible mistake and the darkness will take over the world. If I killed Hoden, the evil brother, the world will embrace the light and love. Of course, both of them claim to be Balden. The evil brother tricked me. Two things are possible. If I met the real Balden during my second encounter, he must have been tortured by his evil brother, as the captain mentioned. In this case, I must have killed the evil brother. But it is also possible that he was Hoden and he pretended to be the victim. Which means that I killed the real Balden and now the evil one is free. This idea sends chills down my spine. I have become obsessed and I have been combing through the island since that night, searching for whatever they had left behind. So far, I have found nothing. My hope that I will find a treasure chest is fading away. At the same time, I am watching the world news to find a clue about the future waiting for us and to find out which one of them I accidentally killed that night. Posted by you/Grego525. The previous family of our new home left behind a disturbing secret. Last year, Juan and my wife Amy moved into our new home, in the hope of starting a new life together, after our wedding. It was an old house at a really good price. The house had a sagging roof and peeling paint, while the windows were covered with thick layers of dust. There were cobwebs in the corners and creaking floorboards. The garden was untended and overgrown, with dead leaves and weeds obscuring a path to the front door. Inside, the furniture was shabby, with outdated fixtures and worn carpets, but it could be made up with a little work. At first, it was all sunshine and roses. We settled into our new home and quickly got to work making it a place we could call our own. We worked together, day by day, to make our house a home, painting the walls, buying new furniture, and fixing up the garden. It was hard work, but it was worth it. Every hour spent improving our home brought us closer together as a couple. But as time went on, we had a strange feeling that there was someone else with us too. As if someone had taken up residence in the old house besides us. Everywhere we went, we heard and felt a subtle but unmistakable presence, like a cool mist that settled in the air. At night, we heard strange noises from the walls in the attic, indicating that there was something living in the house. We held long whispers in the kitchen at 2 in the morning, when the odd sounds were at their loudest. Still, we refused to believe that there were any ghosts living in the old house, despite the warnings of the locals. One evening, while we were sitting in the living room, we heard a loud thump coming from the attic. Amy and I exchanged worried glances before I decided to investigate. I made my way up to the attic, only to find that nothing was out of the ordinary. The next morning, I went to the local library to do some research on this old house. I found a number of interesting documents detailing the history of the property and its previous occupants, including a family that lived there many years ago. We began to experience more strange occurrences, such as creaky doors opening on their own or objects being mysteriously moved around our house. We also noticed a heavy feeling of sadness throughout the house and an inexplicable coldness in certain rooms. As for the history of the house, the estate agent did not tell us much about the previous owners of this house. He only said a family had lived there for 3 years when they suddenly moved out without no reason. We wanted to try and contact the entity, so I bought an Ouija board and one night we started using it. We had been at it for a while when suddenly the room went cold and the entity began to move our hands around the board. "What's your name?" we asked. "Kai," came the response. "What do you want?" followed. "You help me," he said. "What happened to you?" we inquired. We waited for his reply, getting only the word family. In response, "What happened to you?" I asked after a moment of hesitation. "Left me." I pressed on. "Did they kill you?" Before the pointer could have moved, Amy pushed my hands away. "Stop it. This child is obviously in shock. Do you really want to hurt him more?" At that moment we heard crying in the air, but we could not locate where the voices were coming from. But they were the desperate crying of a small boy. "Oh my God," Amy said, and she jumped up, sending the Ouija board tumbling to the floor. Those voices just made us more sorrowful and we felt the urge to do something. The following day in the kitchen, Amy and I discussed the tragedy that had befallen the boy. "We must come forward with what we know," Amy suggested. "Maybe we should contact the police." "Do we really want to get involved?" I countered. "That poor soul won't rest until his story is told and justice is served," she replied. I mulled over her words for a moment. "All right," I conceded. "Let's talk to the family first. Maybe we can do some digging around without the authorities." I took out my phone and called my friend Henry, who was a private detective. "Hey Henry, can you do me a favor?" I asked him, without revealing any details about the boy. Instead, I explained to Henry that Amy and I wanted to reach out to the previous owners of our house because we had some questions. Henry came back to me an hour later with a telephone number and address. Amy and I judged it best to give the people a call first. My hand shook as I dialed each of the 10 digits, my stomach fluttering in anticipation as the phone rang. After 3 long rings, a man answered in a low, neutral voice. "Hello?" he said. "Hello? Good day, Mr. Jones. My name is Matt Watts and we are living in the house that you vacated some time ago. Might I ask you a few questions?" Before I had finished my query, he hung up. That was very strange and a red flag to me. Amy and I just could not get our heads around it and we kept mulling over what had happened all day. Later that day, I tried to call him again. "Listen to me very carefully, Mr. Watts, do not call me again or otherwise it won't end well, I can promise you," he said and hung up. The more we thought about it, the more worried we became. We tried to forget about it for the remainder of the night, but eventually, we decided that we had to tell Kai how his family made us feel unsafe and that we didn't want to reach out to them again. So we started using the Ouija board again and presented him with the above. At that moment, objects in the room started flying, so he seemed very angry. We were all in shock, but I knew we had to get Kai some closure. I asked him, "Did your family hurt you? Did they do something bad to you?" Kai remained silent for a few moments before he slowly moved the pointer on the board. "Yes," he indicated. My heart broke for him as we realized what had happened and why he wanted us to help him. He wanted us to seek justice for his death and make sure that his parents were held accountable for their actions. I immediately called Henry again and asked him if he could help us find out more about Kai's family. I told him about our story as well. Although he did not believe in the paranormal, he was willing to help me as he was a close friend of mine. He agreed and promised to dig deep into their pasts, no matter how long it would take, and he would pay a visit to his family. I offered to go with Henry because I felt like I needed to be there if any evidence of wrongdoing was found. So, the next day, we started making our way towards the address provided by Henry, a small house on the outskirts of our town. It was a long drive, and a somber mood hung in the air as we both thought about what could have happened to Kai. "Be careful, they may be dangerous," I advised Henry, but I was sure he knew what to do as he was an experienced and well-trained private investigator. He pressed the doorbell, and after a few moments, a middle-aged woman opened the door. She had light hair and eyes that shone like bright sapphires. Her lips had an air of haughtiness as they curved into a thin, uninviting line. "Can I help you?" she asked in a clipped voice. Henry introduced himself, mentioning that we were there about the house and had some questions, and the husband appeared behind her, his brow creased into an angry frown. He was clearly reluctant but eventually stepped aside to let them in. The family's home was designed with a modern, yet simplistic style, with some photos on the walls. They were photos of the parents and a little girl, but I did not see any photos of the boy. The living area and kitchen are open plan, and the furniture is modern but understated. After taking a seat on the sofa, a small girl with blonde hair and bright eyes entered the room. She has an air of curiosity as she looked around at her visitors. She was the girl from the photos. "What was it like living there?" I questioned. The little girl suddenly dashed away, sprinting up the stairs. The wife attempted to pursue after her, yet she couldn't catch up. The man sighed. "It was an old house, it needed continuous maintenance, which was not cheap. We got tired of it and we left," the husband said with exhaustion in his voice, his eyes shifting away. Henry leaned back in his chair and fixed her with a serious expression. He adjusted his glasses and said, "Mr. Jones, what was the real reason you were moving out?" His voice was low and heavy, and his brow was furrowed in concern. "Please leave," the husband said, standing up and clenching his fists. "You had better tell us what happened before the police do. Because if you did something to your son, you cannot get away with it." Henry noted. Mr. Jones's eyes widened in surprise as he shook his head from side to side. His voice cracked as he spoke. "Son? We never had a son." His confusion was evident on his face as he looked around the room for an explanation. "What do you mean you never had a son?" "Your son, Kai," I said. "Oh, that. Now it says it's a boy?" My eyes widened in disbelief as I asked, "What are you talking about?" My mind was racing to comprehend what I had just heard, causing my confusion to swell. "What did he tell you?" "Just that his family hurt him and left him." "I see, so it seems it tells the same story," he replied and went on. "So, when we lived there, our daughter started talking to someone. Or something. She said it was a girl, but we never saw her. Her name was Alice, and she said the previous family hurt her and then left her. I only started to believe in her when objects flew around, drawers opened and books fell. That fucking thing was haunting the house and it didn't leave us alone. We were terrified every night until we couldn't last longer and moved out. Our daughter still visits a therapist. She still has nightmares. That's why I told you to stay away from us. I think it was a mistake that we tried to communicate with it. Oh, and there was another family before us. They were also harassed by this entity and it wanted them to stay because it claimed everyone had left him, which hurt this thing very much. Did you talk to it? Are you still living there?" "Yes, we are, but after this, I am not sure. Oh my God." At that moment, I realized I had left Amy in that house alone. I was frozen in shock, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts. If that thing was not who he or she said it was, we were in danger. I quickly scrambled to my feet and hurried out of the room. Henry followed me. The sun had set and Amy's bedroom window was still illuminated by moonlight. I rushed up the stairs two at a time and burst into her room, but she was nowhere to be found. My heart raced as I frantically searched the house, calling out her name while visions of all the horrible things that could have happened raced through my mind. I quickly ran to the living room where Henry was waiting for me with a confused yet concerned look on his face. "She's not here," I said, my voice shaking with worry. We both hesitantly glanced at the door that led to the basement, and Henry's grip on the gun tightened. We descended the stairs slowly, the wooden planks creaking with each step, and Henry's gun was drawn in front of him like a shield. I pulled out my phone and used the flashlight function to light our way. The beam flickered against the damp stone walls as we made our way down. Even in the light, I could feel an icy chill settle over us with each step. We cautiously climbed down the rickety stairs, gripping the handrail with white-knuckled fear. As our eyes adjusted, a chill swept through us as we noticed a piece of paper on a chair with a message written in crayons. "I have found my new family." I was trembling, standing in the hallway, muttering expletives under my breath while searching for Amy in desperation, but we did not find her. My stomach sank when we made the 911 call, and soon enough blue and red flashing lights filled the house. The officer questioned me while other officers searched every corner of the house, overturning furniture and opening closets. But after all their efforts, Amy was never found. I, of course, became a suspect, and the police still believe I have something to do with my wife's disappearance, but nobody believes me besides the Jones family and Henry. But I am not so sure about him. As long as her body is not found, God forgives, they cannot do anything. I still live here, never intend to sell it, and I am not afraid anymore. I am waiting and hoping for that fucking thing to return one day and bring back Amy, wherever he took her.